So we are in, don't need that. Welcome. So let's see who's on air. We want to link to this live broadcast. Okay, we are checking in. So can anybody who's in there, if you can let me know if you can hear me, just type in the box there. Turn my heater off. For some reason, we had those technical issues again. So if you can just type away, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see the slider in front of you. Let me just type in case you can't. Can you hear me now? There's a couple logging in. Great. So my apologies. We are going to be slightly late on starting. Just want to check whether you can hear me. So if you could just post in the thread or give me a thumbs up of some kind or a yes, let me know that you can hear me and see the PowerPoint in front of you. You should also be able to see me down in the little video box there. I'm not sure what you've got on your screens, so if anybody could let me know, that would be amazing, just so I know it works. We had a bit of trouble last week. We've had a bit of trouble today. Hopefully we will get there with this one. It looks like we are on air. It's telling me I've got a microphone. I can see my face and I can see the PowerPoint. So as long as those who are in can just post. Yes, Amy, fantastic. Hearing you clearly with the PowerPoint in front of me. Hooray. Okay. Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate that. Finally, we've got there. So as you can see from the sticky post up there, if you could all just post in your profession and then any specific questions you might have relating to the topic of human movement. I think there is a slight delay as you type, so bear with me and I'll catch up through the questions as you post them in. You can ask questions at any time, so please feel free to type away. Just getting another question coming in over here. Oh, somebody said they can't hear me. I think that was on the previous test. So hopefully people will start checking in now and they can actually find us. So if not, this is going to be hopefully good enough to use again as a video that we can email to you so you can look back at it afterwards. So we've still got people logging in. I know we've got quite a few booked in, but it sometimes takes people time to log in, or some of them do actually watch it back later on. So I just want to say welcome to those of you who've already checked in. Please, as I said, just type your profession down in the post and let me know you can hear me and see everything okay. There's me in the little box and the PowerPoint, which I'm going to talk through over the next, around about the next sort of 55 minutes or so. So I know we've got Amy in. Amy can hear me and see the PowerPoint, so bear with us, Amy. We'll just let a few more people log in, see if anybody else is going to talk to me. So last week I was looking out at sunshine. This time it's not such a sunny day. There's no rain at least. But I've just got back from an awesome presentation workshop that we did over at one of our local colleges to a group of new PTs, which is always interesting, I think, when you go into that PT training. But so Amy, you're a PT and soft tissue therapist. Barbara, all the way from Bali. Welcome, Barbara, and Alicia, PT. Thank you for that. So if any of you tried to log in last week, my apologies. We were supposed to do this time last week, but we had some technical difficulties. So I'm a little bit paranoid now that it's not going to work, but I think we are there okay. So I'm just going to hang on just a couple more minutes because we open late. Just to let a few more people log in. Let me know what you do. Barbara, what do you do over there in Bali? And are you British or are you from Bali? Barbara sounds like a pretty British name, but maybe I've never been to Bali, so I don't know. So let me know your profession. And again, any questions specifically. So Amy, Barbara or Alicia, do you have any specific reason for being here? Are you just checking us out maybe? Or are there particular clients that are causing you a bit of a problem in the sense of knowing what to do with them, or maybe you're just looking for some new techniques and tips? So I'm going to kick on with using the PowerPoint as well. And I'm going to ask you all, if you don't mind, just turn your phone off. Let's have an hour together, focused. Shut the door. Get yourself a pen and paper, so you can make notes if you want to as we go along. And just got another post coming in. Brilliant. From Gail. Thank you, Gail. Friend of Tom. Oh, Barbara, welcome. Tom Waldron is one of our master trainers, so he's reaching far afield, and the Franklin method, which is a fantastic sort of imagery concept, which works really nicely actually with our program, hence Tom Waldron's popularity and his passion when he's speaking about the two programs. So if you've got yourself settled in your room and you are ready to go, you can carry on posting at any time, by the way, guys. What I'd like you to be aware of is this is all about bringing you 3 secrets that you really need to know, whether you're a personal trainer, a manual therapist, whether you're a Franklin method practitioner, anybody who works with the human body to improve movement, really, these 3 secrets. So the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic biomechanics. Also, there's a 3-tiered approach to exercise prescription. At the moment, it's kind of in 2 tiers. And so we add in another layer, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And also the integrated system, which is ultimately paramount for anybody in the business of human movement to understand. So 3 secrets that we should all know: difference between extrinsic, intrinsic, 3-tiered approach, and the integrated system. Now, if you guys hang around at the end, I am going to teach you one evidence-based pelvic function test. And it was the 2nd highest correlation to gold standard lab testing to identify pelvic dysfunction in a client. It's super, super easy. And then if you're still hanging around, then I'll teach you a method of addressing that dysfunction. So a nice little anti-spasm technique to address that that state if your pelvis is dysfunctional. So we'll do that together later on. So not getting any questions coming through. So I really like to get the questions because I'd rather be talking about things that are specific to you being here. So I'd like to understand really your purpose in giving me an hour of your time and listening to what I've got to say so that I can actually give you something valuable and we can discuss things that are relevant to you guys. So we've got personal trainers, manual therapists, Franklin method practitioners, educators in the room so far. I know there's more of you in the room. Please don't be shy. Please type down your profession and your questions if you've just joined us. So we're going to go through a few things, and just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm nearly 3 decades in the industry. Originally, I was a professional dancer. I adore group exercise. I'm not a huge fan of personal training personally, but I've also got several skills: teaching, counselling. I'm a British weightlifting coach. I've done some strength and conditioning stuff, and my special interests are in creating awesome education experiences for any learners who come through our academy, particularly with the face-to-face experience. I like to improve strength and performance in athletes who are bodybuilders, powerlifters, strongmen, kind of those sort of fields, rather than the injured. I'm not really a fan of working with the injured, but I work very closely with osteos and physios, and we cross-refer our clients to each other. I'm also a massive human movement geek, and I love watching the weightlifting in slow-mo. You may, if you've sort of my friend and you follow me on Facebook, you've probably seen me repost some of the slow-mo videos. And when you really break down movement into the slow patterns and watch it, I find that quite fascinating. So that's enough about me. Other than some of the reasons why I'm here, which maybe some of you will resonate with, and that is kind of my past experience working with clients, feeling frustrated, lacking confidence, really wanting to help and knowing I was a good coach, but I just didn't have all of the answers. So if you feel the same, just type yes now in the little box, so that I know that we're kind of coming from the same place. And if we're not, then I kind of need to know that, because this is kind of the the background I'm going to be coming from. So I'm going to talk to you about the program that I teach that you might be interested in. Yeah, Amy's agreeing. You kind of know it, but you're instinctive, but it's still subjective, and you kind of wonder why things happen the way they do, why people move the way they do. Glenn saying yes. Emma, welcome from Bristol. Pilates, massage and hypnotherapy. Wow, fantastic. I'm actually looking at some psychology stuff myself at the moment. I'm not sure about hypnotherapy. I've never been hypnotized, but I would be very interested in that. And I'm sure it comes in handy, certainly with clients who have emotional, psychological issues who come wanting help with their movement or physical self. So thanks for posting, guys. Please do keep posting questions as we go. This is really, the purpose of this is kind of a live Q&A as well. I've got some stuff to talk about, and I can talk quite a bit, but I prefer it if you can interact. Let me know why you're here, and if there's anything specific you want me to talk about, so I can make this relevant to the audience. So really the course I teach, the background and the philosophy, if you like, was we gathered data over 20 odd years, looking at both elite and sedentary clients, the way they moved, their biomechanics measured on isokinetic machines. So you've probably seen the little image on that on the slide there at the bottom. And we have clients like Daley Thompson, Linda Christie, Derek Redman, Kelly Holmes. We've had Bob and Sue down the gym and Grandma. And we took them through the isokinetic machines to look at their biomechanics and then see how that related to their medical history. And what we found was quite interesting, particularly when a client would come with a sore shoulder. We would treat the shoulder, they'd feel better, they would go away, but they would come back 6 months later and the sore shoulder was still present. So we realized actually that kind of on-site, site-specific addressing of their pain issue was really not going to be the long-term answer for a lot of these people. So we started to develop some research by looking at some manual screens, tests that are out there, and which ones correlated to what we saw on the isokinetic machines. And we found that a few of them had stunning results, 97% gold standard accurate to lab testing on a 30,000 piece of isokinetic machinery. So these particular screens we put together and we developed a system of addressing our client's body systematically through the areas of the body to help and improve the way they moved. A byproduct of this is risk reduction and potentially the pain reduces, but we would never go to the site of pain. That is really a clinician's job. So the clinicians amongst us would treat the site of pain whilst the exercise professionals would be getting the rest of the body moving well. We took the studies from all sorts of research, our own included, from McGill to Taylor Grakovetsky, and evidenced tests and exercises, put them together in a whole system that we can then pass on to people like you to understand more objectively why people move the way they do. Understanding the scope of practice is really key here, because particularly for the exercise guys like myself, not clinically trained, I do have manual therapy skills, but as I said, I prefer to work with the fit and healthy guys. So understanding your remit and when to refer on is really important, because we have trained in these skills both physios, chiros, osteos, podiatrists, next to personal trainers, Pilates teachers and yoga teachers. The beauty of it is the simplicity that the tests are analysing function and movement, and then the I Move Freely program is how we address those problems. And this can be complemented with either exercise from the exercise guys or therapy from the therapy guys. So it's a nice bridging gap, and it enables us to talk to each other better as well, which is super cool, because I don't think we've been doing that very well up to now. We're starting to get these kind of hybrids coming through who have dual professions, which is amazing. I believe that we should do what we do really well, whether that's one or two professions, rather than trying to do everything, and then have a network of interdisciplinary communications open with other professionals so that we can utilize their skills that might differ. Now, the roots of the program really came from originally sort of the exercise, rehab, kinesiology, and then combined with the clinical or the chartered physiotherapy. And the two concepts were kind of like put together as we developed the research to really challenge current thinking, which keeps the two worlds apart. Kind of we personal trainers will send their clients off to a physio, the physio will send the client back to the gym, and there's kind of a missing part in the middle that allows the personal trainer to assess whether they're ready for certain movements or not, or for the physio to understand again what their limitations are that might be impacting on the problem area. So this challenges current thinking and creates this new paradigm, and we classify it as understanding or specializing in intrinsic biomechanics, which I'm going to go into in just a moment. But just to give you a broader view of where we've been and where we're going to, the people that we're working with. So there's just some branding up there. You can see some of the logos, some of our affiliates. We've also worked with some guys out in America. We've got distributors in Sweden and Saudi as well. And places like Esporta, I don't know if you remember the Esporta Club, we trained some of those guys up. I think it was 55 gym managers, fitness managers, and I think it was Riverside Chiswick quadrupled their PT in 4 weeks, introducing just 3 of our assessments. And there are around 42 that you learn in total in our full diploma. So we've worked with several organisations, rugby, football, and so on. And certainly we've got little statistics like improving quad strength output by 50% in 10 days on one of the rugby players after doing a nerve mobilisation, very basic, very simple, not on a diagnostic. It wasn't a clinical issue. It was simply a biomechanical compensation. And that's one of the things that we were able to address for him. So we're welcome to Jim, and also just getting some feedback. Just have a quick look, see if there's any questions before we get on to secret number 1. Okay, so guys, please do, as I said, post any questions as they come in. Secret number 1, extrinsic versus intrinsic. Now, some of you out there may have studied biomechanics previously. And what we're going to do here is break it down into 2 kind of ideas. And I might get up and show you some movements just in a moment to explain the difference. So ultimately, biomechanics is the body's mechanics. It's the study of human movement. It is a science. So anybody involved in human movement will be somehow involved in the science of biomechanics. It can be what we know more commonly as biomechanics, the very high-end extrinsic forces, vectors, first, second, third class levers is one aspect of the extrinsic. And so that really is kind of what we already do. And just to give you a simplistic version, I'm just going to tilt my screen. If you were to take a client, for example, and as they squat down, the knee kind of caves in. So what you might do is you might verbally coach them to keep the knees in line as they go up and down, as they move. So extrinsically, you're analysing their movement and you correct them or their technique by verbal cues or visual cues as well. Just tick me a yes in the thread if that's kind of what you're already doing and that's how you understand your role as coaching exercise. I'm not sure if Amy does do PT as well. So some manual therapists maybe don't prescribe as much exercise as others. But I see Amy does have a PT qual. Yes, yes, yes. Fantastic. We're all listening. Great. Thanks, guys. So extrinsic is what we already do. So that's not really what we're going to be talking about. What I'm going to be talking about is the myofascial, skeletal, neural, the intrinsics, the 3 subsystems that impact on the way you move. So let's just imagine that client again. And let's imagine they've been sitting all day like me. And then when they do that, it's because they have been sitting all day. The brain has recognized you're not using these hip muscles. So it's starting to compensate by maybe making them more, let's say, ligamentous. They go into a subclinical, non-painful, insidious compensation, which is like a constant contraction. We call it a subclinical spasm. And so when you stand, your hips are left in a slight rotation. I don't want to say the word stuck. It sounds quite aggressive, but they start to be limited, so that when you are asked to squat by maybe us or a personal trainer, the brain is kind of saying, okay, let the knee come in just to protect the back. So then that identifies there is a difference in some cases in poor movement from technique and what's happening on the inside. And that's the tough bit. Unless you've got some x-ray goggles, then it's very difficult to know what's actually happening in somebody's body. So to be able to take a 25-year, 4,500 subject study where we did a trial, try this, do this, input, output over and over again to find the most common results, you've got a pretty good system of approach. Each test we teach is evidence-based on its own, and then we develop the system of all of them to apply them and improve movement. So again, just give me a thumbs up if you're still with me, if that's all making sense, or if you have any questions. So what we're going to be really diving into is the intrinsic biomechanics in our programming. And when we get later on, I'm going to teach you a test to understand better what's happening on the inside, and that maybe you can then change that with the exercise we do. And that might then change their squat pattern. They may start to come down and the knee stays in line. Well, you know that was their intrinsics rather than just poor technique. So hopefully that makes sense. Just give me a yes if it's making sense so far. Okay, so secret number 2 is a 3-tiered approach to exercising. Thank you, Barbara. Thumbs up. Now, this 3-tiered approach to programming is really, if you imagine, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. And this 3-tiered approach previously has been more like 2 tiers. So I want you to imagine 30 years ago, there was a guy called Arnold Schwarzenegger. You may or may not have heard of him, who was kind of part of the real original Gold's Gym, Muscle Beach, bodybuilding, the beginning of exercise, kind of if we talk about the history of exercise. And it was very much global muscle performance, compound moves, squats, pushes, pulls, etc. And so today it's a bit more fashionable, a bit more funky, and we call it functional training. It's the same thing, it's still global muscle performance. The second tier came along when somebody decided, well, we need to have a strong core first. We need to have a strong foundation. So the Pilates, Joseph Pilates work came out in several different versions that I'm aware of. And core training became very on vogue, and it still is, I believe, very on vogue. Everybody wants a strong core. They believe they have a weak core. We can talk about that on another session, the weak core fallacy. But actually, what we need to do is regress back a 3rd step further. So if you have a look at this pyramid and imagine the history of exercise in reverse, so from the top, the global muscle performance, then the core stability. What we're going to be talking about is really preparing the body for the movement first. So if you imagine my guy with the knee falling in on the squat, who's been sitting at their desk, and they've got these compensations around the hips, the spine is slightly rotated. These are minor, they're not aware of them. They may not be uncomfortable either if it's just begun. Would that actually be a great position to start doing core work? What do you think? So just post in there if you think that would be a good start for doing some core training on a rotated pelvis and a twist in the spine. Maybe dysfunctional QL, some of the hip muscles, maybe a twist in the spine or a stiff lumbar. Might not be prudent to do core training on. That's not to say we don't need core training, but ultimately, yeah, absolutely, Jim. We really need to get the pelvis and the spine moving well first. Yeah, absolutely. Glenn's agreeing with me. So that then when we do our Pilates or our core training, we are more level, we're more in a better alignment, and actually then we're ready for that journey up to the top of that pyramid. So I hope that makes sense, but it's really important, key, that we really identify with the preparation piece, rather than it just being a 10-minute warm-up on the treadmill, or a little bit of a movement or stretching. It might need to be more specific and more objective. So if we think about us as humans, Yeah, start out straight, Charlotte. That would be great, wouldn't it? And I'm not sure there's many who come in starting out straight. So if you imagine the human hunter-gatherer, we started out, you know, on our haunches. And then over the last 30, 20, 10 years, I mean, evolution of technology has been phenomenally fast. And the body really hasn't had a chance to keep up. And so what's happened is we've started to get more static. The body is designed to move, not sit. And if we are sitting in our 90 degrees for any length of time at our desks, on the sofa, in the car, at the doctor's, at the dentist, on the bus, on the train, maybe in the pub or out for dinner, the body's going to start to compensate for that. It's a master of compensation, and it will adapt to its environment. And so we need to be mindful of this when we're training our clients. So when we think about the way we may have adapted and we've gained these kind of compensations, muscle spasm, tension in the nerves, stiff joints, and I'm not talking about injuries, I'm not talking about pain, I'm not talking about repetitive strain stuff. That's at the end of that's when you've had these things going on for a long time. So I'm talking about things that you're not aware of. You may just look in the mirror and you look a bit wonky, or you get a bit stiff on one side of the spine, or one hip feels a bit weird on your squat. And these are really, this is the time we need to be addressing it, probably before you even notice it. Because if we don't, you know, we've got these compensations. The core is not in a position to be most efficient at engaging around the spine. The government's saying we're all getting fat. We're all going out and jumping around and moving. And guess what? People are getting these knee, back, shoulder issues, which is kind of no surprise. So we need to really regress people right back to the point where low grade, simple, specific, bespoke exercise programming to prepare the body, give it capacity for movement. When you've got the spine and the pelvis level, straight, as Charlotte says, start out straight, then you have the capacity to engage your core. And then actually you'll be on your route to correcting faulty movement patterns when you go out and run, jump, squat, play tennis, swim, or whatever your sport. So I hope that makes sense. You know, we are in a world that is now more concrete, more sitting at 90. So we shouldn't really be surprised about these kind of physical compensations happening. They're going to be a bit uncomfortable for a while until we adapt more or move more. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Secret number 3, I mean, it's not really secrets. It's just really important points to focus on. And I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to bring in my my Skelly. So just let me know if you can't see. I'm going to bring my little Skelly over. So if we think about the body as your 3 subsystems, so your skeletal, your neural, and your myofascial, these 3 subsystems make up the intrinsic biomechanics, and the way we move and what we see on the outside is a result of that. So if you imagine the way the pelvis moves, it will tilt forwards and backwards, posterior, anterior and posterior, and then when you walk, it will rotate either side different to the other. And when you step forwards with one leg, so hopefully you can see my man, if you can't let me know, as the leg steps forwards on this side of the hip will rotate up and back, and as the leg steps back through the gait cycle, it will rotate forwards and down. That's my understanding anyway. So if you imagine this client has been sitting down, the pelvis has got stuck, compensated, adapted, changed, whilst the leg was sort of in the back position, if you like. The pelvis is rotated forwards and down. This might give this leg the appearance of being longer in comparison to the other one. But this is a functional leg length discrepancy. This isn't necessarily different femur lengths. This is because the hips are slightly off rotated. And what can happen as a result of that, we get a compensation at the knee, and it might buckle in. And if you're running repeatedly, that client might complain of knee pain. They might complain of shin pain. They might complain of foot pain if the foot is rolling in. But is the shin, the knee, or the foot the problem? No, the compensation is coming from the hips. So the little muscles like piriformis, the glutes, as we know, can become dysfunctional. And if they get stuck, actually they can result in knee, shin, or foot pain over time. Another way that we might compensate can be that instead of the knee buckling in, the hips might sit asymmetrically, the longer legs, letting the ilium sit higher. And this can result in some functional scoliosis, which of course can result in some low-grade back pain. So again, to address low back pain automatically with core work might not be the best place to start. Back pain doesn't automatically mean you have a weak core. It could be that you have this twist causing a twist at the spine. You could have QL dysfunction, which we need to identify. And of course, you have that direct biomechanical link between the shoulder and the pelvis through the way muscles and fascia and bone attach. So the hamstrings go into the back of the hips, sacrotuberous ligament, thoracolumbar fascia, the lat, humerus on the other side. So you have this chain, which is why we walk in this rotation fashion. There's obviously a common link between the muscles of the hip and the sciatic nerve. So sometimes you can get the appearance of tight hamstrings that are actually hamstrings hanging on to protect a tight sciatic nerve. So if you're stretching your hamstrings and it ain't working, then maybe that they're not actually tight. It could just be that they're hanging on trying to protect the nerve. So we need to be able to identify and do tests to understand which is under more tension, the hamstring or the sciatic nerve. So if any of the things I'm mentioning here are relevant to you, your clients, if it's you're kind of sitting there going, yes, that's me, or that's my client Bob, just post please in the thread and let me know that we're on the same page, just so I know you're all still there. We're about halfway through, by the way, guys. And as I said to you, if you hang around, I'm going to teach you an evidence-based pelvic function test and exercise. So Emma, yes, thank you very much. So we're all on the same page so far. Am I bringing up any questions for you guys? Is there anything that's bringing up questions? Jim's good so far, brilliant. Amy, great info, good, thanks, Amy. Very passionate about educating more people through you guys. So I can only help one person at a time, maybe a group in my group classes, but ultimately passing on information that's been given to me to others after seeing the results I have. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Glenn. Through you, we can help more people, and it is our mission to get the nation, the world moving more freely. And it can be so easy, guys. I'm going to show you later on, so do hang around. So let's move on. This next piece is about the evidence. Charlotte, just bear with me. QL, SI joint dysfunction, relevant to me, sciatic, relevant for client. Okay, cool. Barbara, all good so far, brilliant. They're common issues, Charlotte. QL, SIJ, sciatic, just because of their relationship with each other. What's interesting is, thank you, Barbara, is one of the tests the test we're going to do today potentially could help with any of those, just simply by the integrated system concept. So one of the things we teach to both our therapists and our personal trainers on our biomechanics coach diploma is you avoid the area that hurts. Don't go near it. You don't need to if you understand the body as an integrated system. And that's so much more satisfying. It's easier rather than the anxiety of, you know, do I move the sore bit? You don't need to. Move the pelvis, this can affect the spine and the shoulders. Move the shoulders, this can affect, and so on. So we really need, if the one thing you take away from today, guys, is that the body is an integrated system, and that's how we should always consider it, even with clients with pain, particularly clients with pain. Don't go near the point of pain, get the rest of the body moving well. This is how the program came about, was from a very frustrated physio who was always treating the site of pain and not getting great results. Very often for insidious low-grade stuff that creeps up over time, that isn't often the area that is the problem. It's the area where it's presenting itself, but it's often not the root cause. So we did a stack of research, and one study we did, guys, was with a group of subjects who had been registered disabled with low back pain for 2 years or more. Statistically, that group or that demographic, it's only about 10% will get back to work. So we took that group of subjects. We didn't treat them. We didn't assess them clinically. We just looked at their basic function and movement, and we did the test we're going to do today and the exercise we're going to do today, amongst others. And actually what happened was we improved their back function by 141% in 6 weeks. and we put 97% of them back to work in that period of time. Now, standard physiotherapy treatment improves back function by about 39%. I think there was an article in the New England Journal in '98, so it was about 39% over a 6-week period. If that low back pain is not clinical, the physio isn't not doing a great job. They're doing a brilliant job of what they do, specialists in addressing the site of pain. What we need to complement that with is biomechanics coaching or movement-based programming to get the rest of the body moving well as well, because it's either going to be a compensation for a pathology or a pathology for a compensation. And so we need to understand the difference and how it all fits together. But in my experience, low-grade, insidious, non-specific, more often than not, is biomechanical. And we need to be mindful of red flags, of course, but opening up the avenues to work with other people. There's just a note on there, Sweden, 3 times the improvement in a third of the time, and a similar biomechanical model. So it isn't just us, we're cottoning on there. So here was following nerve mobilization. So we rigged some guys up, some athletes, it was a pilot study, to an exoskeleton, to the spine, and we tested their flexion and rotation right and left side before and after doing a nerve mobilization. And these are fit and healthy athletes, by the way. So the first grid is showing the improvement in range of motion. So blue was before the nerve mobilization and the yellow lines are after. So range of motion was not statistically that interesting. However, on the second graph, what you can see is their spinal velocity after doing a nerve mobilization improved by over 200% in some cases. That's massive. You imagine a sprinter, a boxer, anybody who's doing anything high speed, that is huge when it comes to performance and also risk reduction. Really, really interesting stuff, and certainly stuff that when we're thinking about movement, it's like somebody with a low back pain, you know, range wise, they generally find their way down. It might take them 4 weeks to tie up their shoes, but they'll get there. But the speed is actually what's limited, which is, again, it keeps it more specific in how we need to address things. So just briefly to explain the way we approach the body in our diploma is really about pelvis, spine, shoulder, knees and feet in that order. The reason we start the pelvis is there was a physio called Rose McDonald did some work and looked at pelvic biomechanics, and she found that 60% of dysfunction does stem from the pelvis, and it kind of makes sense. The centerpiece of the body, ascending and descending influences from the pelvis. So I'm going to teach you a pelvis test and a pelvis exercise shortly. Hang fire, guys. We then go to the spine because it sits on top, and then of course you've got the shoulders, and then the knees and the feet come last in our model. So just to give you that idea, that was the system we developed of how to address the body systematically, which again gives you a nice simple way of addressing your client's issues rather than kind of being maybe all over the place. Well, I hurt here, got this issue going on, and the system works very nicely. So just a couple of kind of testimonially stuff. A couple of our guys, Tracy reported to me this year that from doing our training, becoming a biomechanics coach, in her first year, she has doubled her income, and then she projects this year to tripling it. Natalie started as a sole trader, and she's just looking to open a 3rd clinic. So a lot of what we do is about connecting people and allowing them to expand their businesses, looking at how this fits in, because it isn't just, we might be human movement geeks, but we're also running businesses. How we market this, how we sell this, what is it? How does it compare to other professions? We are the only company in the world who teach it. And technically, while the history and the roots do come from physiotherapy, it's more comparable to an elite personal trainer or strength coach, or manual therapist even. But it really, we shouldn't compare to physiotherapy because it really is not that. That's quite different. So physiotherapy type training or methodology, you should do a physiotherapy degree. Interestingly, we get guys who come through our training who were considering that route, but actually this fitted more. Just making sure I get everything in here. So let me just run through. I think we're at the point where I show you, let's have a look. Yeah, oh, that's what I've just spoken about. So just some of the testimonial stuff we've had feeding back. So I'm going to teach you a test. So if you're all still there listening and watching, just post me a yes and let me know if you're joining in with this. I'm going to move back, so I'm just going to tilt my camera a little bit. Just let me know you're still with me, guys. So remember, this test correlated second highest to gold standard lab testing on the Ice Kinetics. So all you need is a chair. Brilliant. Thanks, Catherine. And what I'd like you to do now, thanks, guys. Fantastic. Still here, Amy. Well done. In your chair, sit comfortably, hips nice and level. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. Make sure your ankle is over the thigh, outside the thigh, and then just see how high your knee falls to the floor. Thereabouts, yeah. You should be relatively comfortable. If you're not, then it could be an indicator there's something going on. So to know whether this is good or not, we switch sides, do the same, comparing the other side. And if you have a slight asymmetry, then chances are you've got pelvic dysfunction. This is a great way, really simple way, testing your client. So you're kind of eyeballing how high the knee is off the floor, but how you feel will also impact on how we judge this test. So if you've done that, can you post, say, asymmetrical or level or whatever you found? Did you find that you were symmetrical or not? Some of you may, like some of my clients, find it difficult just to get into that position. So if you did, then chances are we need to address that. So just let me know if you have had a go and what your result was. Just a quick post in there, let me know. And let me just come down, make sure I've got everything in here. So how are we getting on? Still here. Asymmetrical, pain on the right side. Oh, do be careful, Catherine. We don't want it to hurt. But if it's, sorry, Charlotte. Yeah, Catherine. Charlotte did it last week. Oh, right, okay. We're going to do an exercise in a second. If anything's uncomfortable, please don't do it. Or painful. Uncomfortable might be a stiffness. Okay, great. So what we'll do now then, guys, I'll just let you carry on posting and let us know, is Gail says knee feels, left knee feels higher and tighter. Right, okay. Thanks, Gail. So what we'll do now, I'm going to show you the exercise. So this is an isometric gym, neither comfortable, not painful, as I thought one side was slightly high. Okay, great. So that it sounds like we've all got something going on. This is common and this is the time to get it. This is how easy it can be. So that's the test. The exercise, we're going to get in the same position and we're going to use an isometric technique. Now, we go into the same position and I want you to imagine this movement. All right, so it's internal rotation of the femur. So you lift the knee, press the leg into the bottom leg, so you're engaging rotation. But because it's isometric, we're going to use our hand on the inside of that leg. We're not pushing down. You're lifting the knee into the hand, but you're only going to do that with 20% of your maximum effort, 20% only. You're going to hold it 20 seconds. Now, are you doing it with me? If you've got a spare finger to type yes, let me know you're doing this with me. You're going to do 4 reps. So we do one, about 20 seconds. Then when you've done that, you take the leg down, bring it back up, let it relax, hand on, don't push, just stop the knee from lifting. 20% is submaximal, low grade. Thanks, guys. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Slightly higher, okay, Emma? 20%, 20 seconds. So you're engaging these rotators here. And as the leg rotates in, hands stop the knee from moving. Take it down, bring it back up. So it's a muscle energy technique. So the manual therapists out there will be familiar with PIR and RI, PTs, PNF. But this one is the most low grade. It's been researched twice. Rebo Siskar did some research into this and found it a fantastic way. I think they called it post-contraction sensory discharge of releasing off the pelvis. Let it go down. I think we're on our last one on this side, right? And so you can do this sitting at your desk, you can do it sitting at the bus, on the train, waiting the doctors. It's a really, really simple, easy technique. And you can apply this technique to any area of the body. You engage the muscle you want to anti-spasm using the same technique. Right, let's do the other side. I'm aware of time. We've only got 45 minutes left. So are you doing the other side? Let's have a look. Currently doing this as I had a screen a few weeks ago with one of the students. Oh, brilliant, Glenn. Glad to hear it. Who was it you went to see? Just let me know, post their name in there. So we're on the other side, same thing. And if you're feeling anything, any concerns, any questions, just type again in the thread. So 20%, 20 seconds, 4 reps. How many times a day? Well, periodically, ideally, initially. If we layer on strength training specific to these hip muscles, when we're training, there should be less risk of it going back and back down and back up. But if you do sit at a desk a lot, the chances are this is going to be a maintenance program. So a few times a day, you can do it sitting at your desk anyway. You can carry on typing whilst you're doing it, resisting against your elbow, potentially. I'm going quite quick now. Let's do a couple more. Oh, Cassie, brilliant. Oh, welcome, Glenn. You're in great hands there, Glenn, because she can massage you as well. Do give her my love. So Cassie has just done our full biomechanics coach diploma. She's a manual therapist as well. And she's obviously put Glenn on her case study list by the sound of it. I think this is rep 3. Then we take it down and then we bring it back up. Last one. So just let me know if you've been doing this. And then what we're going to do is redo the test. Yeah, so we can see or feel whether we've got a change in how the legs lie. So take it down, a little bit of shape. So we start the test again. We look and see and feel how high is the knee from the floor. I certainly feel freer. I've done this once this morning when I was over at Nottingham Uni, and I just certainly feel a little bit better on that side. That sounds normally usually a bit higher for me because I sit a lot and drive a lot coming to see you guys. So do let me know, did you get a better result on your second test? Then please type in. If you didn't, then please remember this is one test, one exercise, but you can actually apply that concept to flexion, extension, ab and adduction of the hip, and maybe that would be more helpful for you rather than the rotation component. But what we find is that the rotation actually for a lot of people is really, really good for improving movement at the hip. Using a bar underneath one knee and applying gentle force like a twist. Not quite. This is getting the muscles to do it, Charlotte. I'm not sure what you mean by the one you've talked about. It sounds more like a stretch, whereas this is a contraction. Catherine feels much better, more symmetrical, pain gone. So just type. I should send you an invoice, shouldn't I? I'm teasing. so Catherine's pain is gone. So again, if anybody's got a change, please do post in the box there. And let me just show you. Please go through the exercise again. You can watch back the video, Barbara, but it ultimately is internal rotation of the femur. So it's not adduction, it's rotation. So you're resisting here as well. Hands on the inside. Don't push. Lift the knee isometrically by stopping with the hands. You engage 20% effort. Hold for 20 seconds, 4 reps, and ideally initially 4 times a day. So Amy says she feels much better again. Barbara's definitely improved, she says. I've just had another question come through. Bear with me. Let me just check this one. Gail says the hip feels much better and is lower. Fantastic. Emma feels better. Amy feels better. If nothing else comes from this workshop, this webinar, we all feel better and we're moving more freely. How cool is that? Charlotte, great. Okay. Charlotte, if you want to text me a video or a WhatsApp of the one you mean, I'd find it easier to feedback. Let me post my number in there, 079769333113. Feel free to communicate with me on text or phone. Often do this technique with my clients. It really works. Thanks, Amy. That's the doorbell. Okay, we will have to ignore them. So I just want to show you here the 4 sign exercise. If you have a look at that image, can be done on the floor as well. So lying down, and that's particularly good for people who struggle in a sitting position to get their leg across and up and over if they're particularly stiff, because the hips are slightly more open in the lying position. So if you do have somebody like that, then you can get them into that position. So Jim, seated adductor machine, yes, absolutely. If you put the weights so that the machine doesn't move, Jim, so that it's kind of fixed, and then you can just gently press. But that would be adduction. You could do add and abduction, anti-spasms on those machines. I think sometimes you have 2, sometimes it changes. And then you take the weight down a bit and then work them. So then it applies the strength training in there, Jim, which is a nice little kind of like piece to use. Safe to do with morbidly obese people to encourage more movement in the joints. Yeah, it's about as safe as you get, I think, Catherine. A static, 20% anti-spasm. The challenge is potentially for morbidly obese is getting into positions. So that's why I said to you, you don't necessarily have to do rotation. If you understand the principle of the 20-20 technique, flexion, extension, ab or adduction, like Jim's idea of the ab and adduction machines, then you could do it that way. But your resistance needs to be fixed. So you can't use resistance bands or squishy things. So it needs to be a fixed resistance. So what I would like to do is, let me just have a quick look. We've got about 10 minutes left. So I've spoken about the full diploma, but we do actually have, that might be quite big for a lot of you at the moment. We do have some one-day workshops going around the UK now, which people are finding really, really insightful into what we cover on the diploma. So the one-day workshops, we've got a taster workshop, which covers pelvis, spine and shoulder biomechanics. Okay, Barbara, thanks. We've got the I Move Freely workshop, instructor workshop, which isn't the tests, but it's all of the exercises that you can use in a I Move Freely clinic, maybe a movement clinic. It's not quite sexy enough to be called a class. People might come along and not get what they expect. But we've also got a golf biomechanics one-day workshop. So if you're sports specific orientated, and they're doing really well. So if you wanted to join one of those, I'm just going to, with your permission, if it's all right with you, I will just put a link to that one in there. So that is for the one-day workshop roadshow, and that will take you through. You can have a look, see what we've got going on this year. If there's something there that's not right for you, we've added more, and we're adding more all the time because of the popularity. So with the diploma, which is 5 two-day workshops through pelvis, I mentioned earlier, pelvis, spine, shoulder, knees and feet. That one is, we kick off again in August. So I've just put a link for that. Emma, Bristol, I would love to come to Bristol. We've got a workshop in Malmesbury, which is kind of down that way, but I'm not sure how far it is from Bristol, Emma. Chester, that's that way, towards Manchester, I think, Catherine. I'm just trying to organise a venue for there as well. So we should have your details. We'll put you into with your permission. So if we don't have your permission, please do post. Otherwise, we'll link you into the Juice Mail, which is a weekly blog article, which is all about human movement stuff, things that might interest anybody who's involved with improving movement of their clients. So let me have a quick look. Have I done everything so far? Let me just double check. I think we have just about covered everything so far. It's always the same. The phone rings, the doorbell goes when you're in the middle of a webinar. Just shows how live it is. So we've got about 5 minutes left, guys. I would like to ask you if you can post, was this helpful? Do you have any final questions? Just to let you know, my passion is helping professionals like you, connecting professionals like you, passing on cool information to practitioners like you. I'm here to help support you, as the site says, your growth. And I would really love to meet you on one of our workshops. I do teach most of them at the moment, but I've got an amazing team like Tom, who Barbara knows, who are delivering our content. They go through a rigorous 2 years of apprenticeship, bless them. They're handpicked. So we are very passionate about the standards that we deliver. But ultimately, as an organisation, our purpose is to support people like you, helping the nation move better, the world. We've got Bali in here, gosh. And so through you, as I said, we can help more people. So if that's your passion, let me know. We're quite different to Faster, Catherine. I have done some of their stuff. Their stuff is amazing, very complex, very intense. Our angle is to simplify. If you imagine from a client perspective an application, we would be the preparation for movement. Faster would layer on top of that. Was it the FMS stuff you did, Catherine? If you let me know. So we're different from FMS in that we do single joint movements rather than multi-joint movements. A multi-joint movement like an overhead squat, you can still have a problem area that's compensated for by the joint above and below. I do, Charlotte. My clients are generally powerlifters, bodybuilders and strongmen. I've got a few elite guys. I've got an elite cyclist at the moment. As I said earlier in the webinar, I prefer working with the non-injured. Everybody's got something going on, but yes, I do keep my hand in. I think it's important. So just let me know if you've got any final questions before we draw to a close. The other thing is, if you enjoyed this, if you thought this was great, can you post anything else or any other subject specific that you might like us to cover? We run workshops throughout the whole year. They're running each month. If you go to our website, biomechanicseducation.com, I'm just going to type that in whilst I'm speaking and try not to make a spelling mistake. So if you haven't found us on there already, go and have a look at the website. We're just having some updates done to add in, you're very welcome, Charlotte, to add in an online portal of resources for anybody who joins our IBA membership, the Intrinsic Biomechanics Association, which is about the cost of a workshop for the whole year, and you get free workshops throughout the year. So if you look at the Biomechanics Education website, you'll see an IBA drop down. You'll see some of the workshops we've got going on. And that organisation is really a foothold into communicating with other professionals. So you've got cross referral. We're very, very passionate about encouraging that. So we've not got any more questions coming through. We've just got a couple of more minutes just to allow if there's any final questions. I'm aware that some of the people that are going to be watching this aren't going to be watching it live. So if you are watching this after the event, please feel free to email me at rachel@biomechanicseducation.com. My phone number, let me check I've spelled that right. Yeah, I think so. My phone number is in there. You've got the 2 links for the one-day workshop roadshow, which we're adding to all the time, and also the Biomechanics Coach Diploma, which kicks off in August. We've got the venue in Nottingham and a venue in London. I think we might have something coming up in Manchester, a 3-day module. Catherine, I think that was Catherine, yes, in March. So if that one interests you, let me know. We've got a 1-day workshop when I've sorted out the venue. And also we're doing one in Scotland, but that's already started. So we might be doing another one up there next year. So I think we have come to a close. I want to say thank you to all of you for joining in and definitely for participating. Thank you for your questions, your feedback. I'm so pleased we got everybody moving better in that sort of very quick test and exercise, which just identifies how simple the programs are that we deliver. It is a complex subject. It is a fascinating subject. I personally am a self-confessed human movement geek. So if you're a little bit like me, post in the thread, let me know what more you want to talk about, and maybe we can do this again. Otherwise, thanks, Amy. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Go check us out on Facebook, social media, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places. You'll see me doing my some of my snatch, clean and jerk, and recently my kettlebell course. But also some really cool articles and blogs. So go and check those out. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Hopefully I'll meet you all very soon. Take care. Move more freely, move well.